Hey Book Dragons, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. Roll it! So I was going back and forth on whether or not I wanted to do a full review for this book or if I wanted to save it and just do a whole why you should read video on the entire series of The Broken Earth. And I kind of went back and forth, and I got some good feedback, and most of what I heard was people wanted to see a review of the second book. So I decided I'd go ahead and go forward with it. If you have not read the series, I am going to try and keep this mostly spoiler free. There may be some things that I talk about that have to do with the first book, but again, I'm going to try and keep it spoiler free. But if you don't want to hear anything about it, if you consider any details about any of the book's spoilers, then you probably don't want to watch the video. You can check out my video for the first book. I did a review for it when I first read the 5th season. And you can check that video out. I'll leave a link in the cards at the end and below as well. So let's get right to it. Man, this series just keeps plugging along at a really crazy intense speed. I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I don't mean to give the impression that it's just nonstop action all the time and things like that. It's really not. I mean, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of intrigue, there's a lot of character interactions. You get to know the characters a whole lot more in this book, and some that you didn't really get to know in the first book you get to know in this book. So I really enjoyed that. But when there is action, there's a lot of action, and it's really unique and interesting. Some of the things I mentioned in my review for the first book are the fact that I just really like the magic system. It's all based around geology and the movement of the earth, and certain characters in the book called origins, or derogatorily called ragas by people who look down on them or despise them. They have the ability to cause tremors, to upset the balance of the tectonic plates. They have the ability to move mountains and obelisks, which does happen a lot in this book, The Obelisk Gate. And it's just really fascinating. And there was a tease at the end of book one, and I'm not going to say what it was, but there's a tease at the end of book one, at the very end, where Alabaster, who is one of the main characters, is talking to Cyanide, one of the other main characters. And, well, no, I'm sorry, not Cyanide. He's talking to Essen. I get the two confused, and you'll figure out why if you read book one. But, so he's talking to Essen, and he asks her a question, and you're just kind of left hanging at that point. When he asks her the question. So you find out more about that in this book. It's just really fascinating. So again, the main characters are still Essen and Alabaster, just fascinating characters. She's got a companion with her who happens to be a creature called a stone eater, and he is kind of there to watch out for her and kind of there to placate his own interests, so to speak. Stone eaters are called that because they literally are people who eat stone, and they're humanoid creatures, and there's hints that maybe they were human at one time, but they are no longer so, whether they've been mutated by the by the years and eons and things that have passed in Earth's history, and so they just eat stone, and that's how they get their power and things like that. And they have similar abilities to Origins, but not quite the same type of magic. So just really, really fascinating. N.K. Jemisin obviously did her research into geology and things like that, and I've just been really fascinated reading the story. So you have some of the same characters that you had in the previous book, and they're in this community which is called a calm, and they're trying to make some sort of normal standard of living despite the fact that the earth is in complete chaos and turmoil. And when I said earth, I literally mean it. This really is more of a dystopian fantasy. It takes place in a far future earth that has been ravaged by events called seasons, and that's what this all centers around. Is there are different cataclysmic seasons that happen to the earth, and it all has to do with something that has angered Father Earth, as they refer to the earth as Father Earth. And something has angered Father Earth to the point where, there's earthquakes and tremors and people get killed and all these sorts of things. So they're just trying to make some form of normal living in this community. And I am going to talk a little bit about the beginning, the very, very beginning of book one, because it plays into this book specifically. In the beginning of book one, just plug your ears for a minute if you think this might be a spoiler, but in the beginning of book one, Essen comes back to her house in the community that she's been living in to find that her husband has killed her son and has run off with their daughter. And the reason he killed their son is because her son is exhibiting traits of a raga, of an origin. He can't abide the fact that his son is a freak of nature, I guess you would say, and so he kills him. And so we don't really get to find out too much about her husband and her daughter in this book. In the first book, we just know that they left town after he killed his son, and we follow Essen for the entire book, for the most part. In the present day, anyway, we follow her story. So in this book, I really, really enjoyed it because not only did we get the perspective of Essen and some of the characters that are currently centered around her. Alabaster is there, and a few other characters that we saw in the first book, but now we get the perspective of her daughter and the journey she is going on with her father, who is still trying to make sense of his feelings regarding her in terms of his love for his little girl and the fact that she's also a freak of nature, which he discovered that she's also like her mother. And so he's wrestling with these things. There's points where he's just ready to destroy her, but at the same time she's his little girl, and he loves her, and he doesn't want anything to happen to her, let alone by his hand. And so they've set out on this journey because he's heard of this place that can supposedly cure her of her affliction. So it's just a really, really interesting story. You see the pains within him. His character is really well developed in this book, I thought, and the pain that he goes through wrestling with with his emotions on how he feels about his daughter, it is really heart-wrenching at times, and to see what they go through and to see how it kind of drives them apart at points. So that was really an interesting part of the story. I also really enjoyed seeing Nassin. That's the daughter's name, Nassin, uh, or Nasun. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, honestly. Maybe her mom's name is Sassoon and hers is Nasun. I'm not sure. I just said Essen and Nassin. But it's really interesting to see Nassin's powers bloom as she gets to their destination and is starting to learn more and more about herself. So just really, really cool. I thoroughly enjoyed Essen as a character in the first book and Alabaster as well. But I was always kind of wondering in the back of my mind, okay, what happened to the daughter? What happened to Nassin? What's going on there? During the first book, we didn't even really know if she was alive or dead or what had happened to her. We just know that she wasn't in the picture. So I thoroughly enjoyed this book. And as I said, the magic system is really cool. And the premise of this book is just really unique and different. As Essen starts to discover more and more about her powers, and as her powers grow, she realizes that she has the potential to rewrite history in a sense and do something that will appease Father Earth. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to go into too many spoilers, but she is put on a path where she has the potential to change the thing that made Father Earth angry in the first place. Or at least that's what we're led to believe. And this is something that Alabaster tells her, and this is something that he's kind of training her to do as he's getting weaker and weaker. He's getting older, and there is something that has happened to him that is causing his health to go downhill pretty fast. So he's a jerk, but he's a lovable jerk, and I just really enjoyed him. There's another character from the first book who has a lot more involvement in this book. His name's Shaffa. He's a guardian. The guardians are put in place in the first book to guide Origins, who they see as having potential to be powerful allies in the fight to appease Father Earth and to not hurt anybody. They do have some ulterior motives, but in the end, they have initially been trained to guide the Origins, whether gently or by force, by hurting them. It's kind of like a there's definitely a corporal punishment aspect to it. I'll put it that way. So if they get out of line, there's the potential that the guardian could hurt their trainee. And so in the first book, Shaffa he's a really interesting character, but you don't really learn enough about him to keep from passing harsh judgment on him. In this book, he is very much expanded to the point that you really start to feel for him, and I'm really enjoying getting to know his character. He is a character who is very important in the story and is very important to certain women in the story. So I will leave it at that, but if you have not read the Broken Earth trilogy, you are really missing out. It was a quick read for me. This second book was, I think, 350 pages. It's not long at all. I don't know how long The Stone Sky is. That's the third book in the trilogy, the final book. I haven't looked yet, but I can hardly wait to get to book 3, and I'm probably going to do it in June. I'm hoping to start that book in June, so we'll see. But I gave this book a solid 4.5 stars. I highly recommend it. But you do have to read book 1. You absolutely have to read the 5th season first. They are by no means standalone books. So you can check out my review for that one, as I mentioned. And if you have read this series and you are curious to dialogue with me in the comments, and you want to talk spoilers, that's fine. Just make sure that you put the fact that it is spoilers and spaced down enough so people aren't spoiled. Unless they want to be, then they're going to read your comments anyway. But I would love to dialogue with you in the comments. You can also hit me up on my Discord. My link for my Discord is in the description below. I'd love to have you join the Book Dragons Discord. That would be fantastic. We're having a lot of fun there, and that's where a lot of chatting takes place. I've got chats open in there for all different kinds of book series. A lot of the ones that I love and read on a regular basis. You can find discussion groups for those book series on my Discord, and there's just general chats that go on. We have a good time, so I would love for you to join and continue the dialogue with me. I do have a special shout out here, so I'm going to end the book review portion of this video. If you want to know more, chat with me in the comments. We'll put it there. I am so excited to have my first patron. If you are not aware, I do have a Patreon, and it was kind of weird. I thought my Patreon was active all this time. And this person messaged me and said, "Hey, what's up with your Patreon? I can't access the page." I'm like, "Wait, what?" Turned out it was inactive all this time. I had not actually published it yet when I thought I had. So I'm really glad he let me know. But I am so happy, so excited to have Patrick as my first patron, and thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. And if any of you would like to support me on Patreon, I would be just honored and touched if you did. It'd be so nice to have you join that community. You get some perks when you join my Patreon. So follow the link in the description below if you want to read about some of the perks. You do get special recognition in my Discord. You get early access to my content, things like that. So I'd love for you to check that out. And if you're able to support me, please do. That would be awesome. So keep that in mind. But thank you, Patrick. I'm really glad to have you on board. I'm very excited to have my first patron. So yeah, that is that. My video next week is going to be talking about all of my nerdy collectibles, except one which I have not received yet, and I'm probably just going to save that for a special video because it's probably my favorite that I have so far. But I am going to do a video next week talking about all my nerdy collectibles, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you tune in, and I am going to be hopefully doing some more book tags, and I've got some special videos that I'm ruminating on. I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna do them yet, but just to kind of wet your whistle for it, I'm working hard on some new and different content for this channel that I haven't really done before, and I haven't really seen done before too much anyway. So stay tuned for that. And I will be doing a video in the near future on some of my writing. So if you are interested in hearing about my writing adventures, my book that I have published and books that I plan to publish in the future, check back for that. Make sure you like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on my future content. And I think that's it, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you're reading more books. Pick up the Broken Earth trilogy. I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.